Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kurt. Welcome back to Farlands or Bust, episode 667 of the series. Why? Hold on a minute now. Let me get Wolfie. Oh dear, I am over encumbered with things. For the last 3 episodes, my mouse sensitivity has been way too sensitive. And I've done nothing to remedy the this transaction. So let me actually sensitivity 100%. I've changed not a single thing. I've been messing. That's a much smoother experience, Wolfie. So smooth and silky. Wolfie agrees. But yeah, sorry. Welcome back to Farlands or Bust. Like I said, episode 667. For your Saturday, December 16th, 2017, Wolfie's ready to go. You just recorded episode 666, Kurt J. Mac. Why so soon? That's why. Wolfie, say the reasons. Yeah. Taught you some lessons there based on what Wolfie just said. I ain't even gonna repeat it. Well, listen to him. But yeah, I've been messing around with my sensitivity, like in-game, in other games, like PUBG and stuff like that, only to realize they've made me an even worse player than I already am, so I've reverted them back to the defaults. Yeah, I don't know what happened with Minecraft Beta 1.7.3, which is the version of the game we're playing, because it's the last version to include the Farlands, don't you know? A little bit of education there for you. But yeah, the last episode was 666. It was a delightfully death-defying. There was some defying of death. We were woken up by a few zombies under the monument of 666itude. If you only watched that live on Twitch, then you missed out on some advanced editing techniques I made to some points of that video. On the YouTube exclusive, a YouTube exclusive. So maybe check that out. That was kind of fun to play around with. But yeah, we're recording episode 667 here. It is now halfway through the month of December. Time has dilated. I think maybe something is going on with the mass of the planet or the universe. String theory, dark matter, and is making time pass much too quickly. And all the same, not quick enough. Just before I started recording, I've like yawned 47 times live on stream. Very professional, and trying to figure out what that's all about. It's got to be the fact that it is 4:30 p.m. and the sun here has been set for over half an hour. That just is sad. Why do we only get like 8 hours of sun here? And I realize it's because further north than I've ever lived before. But still, I've receiving none of the vitamin D. I'm taking vitamin D. I'm taking 2,000 butanes of vitamin D or whatever the dosage number is on vitamins. IBUs, IOUs. It's something that said on the bottle, and I'm taking 2,000 of them. To Thundo. But it ain't doing diddly for me. I tell you what. Oh man, it was not like this. Of course, it was like 80 degrees in Arizona, which helps, but since daylight savings wasn't a thing, it still got dark early, but like, it was like dinner time early, not, oh, I just had lunch early. Yeah, I know. That's crazy, Wolfie. It's absolutely crazy. But yeah, we're dealing with it, and we're continuing on. We're continuing on indeed. And you know what else changed since that last episode? We did a whole spiel, a whole kit and caboodle about Patreon announcing that they were going to change the way they process payments and fees charging the credit card processing fees to the user, the pledgee, the patrons, as opposed to the creators, the backlash caused some whiplash at the Patreon offices. Hey, how's that for a headline? And they've gone ahead and canceled those changes. They've gone ahead and postponed the changes that they were planning to take place on the 18th, which was one of the problems, was like no lead time. But they've canceled those changes, and they're looking for feedback, and they're looking to collaborate with the users to figure out how to approach these sorts of things in the future. So there, right there, is a good example of any as to the power of feedback, constructive criticism. I'm sure there was a lot of criticism that maybe wasn't constructive, but like the actual legitimate, let's look at this from a rational, I've been using this since 2013 and depend on it for my livelihood sense of how is this a bad decision that I do not agree with in this system and on this program that I helped support for that long, even though hand in hand the system helped support me. So it's basically been put on hold, any changes, so things will continue into the new year as they've been going. That doesn't change the fact that quite a few handfuls of people in protest left my campaign, and I've seen friends and other people who have campaigns who certainly have lost more than that. I guess Patreon did a thing where they sent an email explaining that they reversed their decision. If this is the reason you canceled your pledge, this is how you can re-enable your pledge with one click, or whatever. So there's some irreversible loss that's obviously going to happen there. But regardless, I would always want somebody on my Patreon to be supporting because they want to support. If that just gave somebody an excuse to stop supporting because they don't want to be supporting anymore, or they forgot that they were supporting the Patreon, then that's fine and dandy. That's whatever. But yeah, that's a good thing, I think. I mean, not 100% forgiven, I don't think. There were still a lot of unknowns behind the motivation of Patreon that seemed a little bit shifty, that we still are kind of skeptical of, I think. But there are certainly other things maybe now that we can adjust our sights on to try to make better. Indeed. And I'm a little side rant. Whether it be this, or whether it be health insurance companies, I know, big difference, big impact difference. You can't really compare them, apples to eggs. But whether it be that, or banks, or health insurance companies, or video game companies, whatever, there's always a small but very vocal minority of comments or chats or Twitter replies that I hear that are very, they for whatever reason side with the multi-million / multi-billion-dollar industry corporations. And I don't understand it, other than perhaps it's some sort of Stockholm syndrome where, the response I saw a few times in regard to the Patreon thing was, well, they're a business too. They have to try to make a profit. And it's like, true, but they and any other company, a bank, a health insurance company, a video game company. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant to actually shear you, and now Wolfie's gonna murder you. That was an accident. My mind was out elsewhere on a tangent. They can do so ethically and with the mind of helping the grander scheme of things and the greater good and being socially responsible, it's just really, I don't understand that. It is kind of a societal thing, very Western societal thing, to be brought up in a world that kind of grooms people, consumers, that consumer thought process to encourage that, to be like, yes, this is the best thing for the business, and for me, they are providing me with the service, even if they're going to charge me more money for this. And oh, those DLC are only cosmetic items. It's not gambling. They're loot boxes. Whatever it is kind of like a weird thing that I think with just more awareness and education we can do better about. And anyway, it just catches me off guard. I'm like, I kind of just want to like hug these people and be like, sweetie, no, this is incorrect way to be living your life. But anyway, let's go to sleep and continue in the morning. And awakeness. And continuing on this. Indeed. Speaking of such things as these, it was indeed the case that yesterday the FCC voted to repeal the net neutrality rules, as was feared and as was kind of assumed they would, since those voting for to do so pretty much stated right out that they're just going to ignore the 84% or whatever of Americans who would not like the net neutrality rules to be repealed. So A, that sucks, but B, the internet isn't over. Yesterday, there is now a legal process that has to take place where the FCC has to defend that position. There are already a bunch of lawsuits from states and other parties to repeal that decision that will need to be defended. Yeah, like the FCC isn't a publicly elected branch of government, so it's not like they can just sign a piece of paper and that becomes law. They need to defend it in court and, if possible, bring it up to actual lawmakers. So yes, that sucks, but the fight is not over. It is not gloom and doom and death and destruction in that regard. And that is yet another thing that we can continue if we raise our voices to rally against and work towards, like I said, the greater good, social responsibility, and ethically structuring this world around us for everybody and not the select few. So yeah, just wanted to mention that really quick, I guess, as well. But regardless, we do have a bunch of questions here. I asked some of my patrons in the Patreon Discord, as well as the Twitch chat here. A few left over from last episode's Twitch chat. True Pain Games asked, I know you're into cars. How about motorcycles? I've answered similarly to this. I appreciate motorcycles. I don't know that I would ever own one and or get a motorcycle license. Certainly, like, aesthetically, they're cool, especially like the old style, bobber style. Even I could dwell a little bit in the old school chopper style motorcycle. Not a fan of the sport bikes, the crotch rockets as they're known. Not a fan of those, or really like the big Harley Davidsons and things. Whenever I see somebody in one of those big Harley Davidsons that has a radio and they're listening to the radio, I'm like, isn't that defeating the purpose of having a motorcycle? If radio, the reason you have a motorcycle is to have a motorcycle and be loud, have a loud engine noises, loud noises, and stuff like that. But anyway, do as you please, whatever makes you happy. Radio having motorcycle aficionados. So yeah, I appreciate, and I think they're cool, but I don't know that that's something I'll ever get around to trying. Of course, I have spoken to people who are like, oh, once you ride, it's like a completely different experience than driving. And, you know, it's like being out there in nature and like seeing the road. It's a much different sensation of speed, etc., etc. I'm not much of a thrill seeker in that regard, so I'm not sure, but I don't know. I would have to try to say, but yeah, I certainly have many other things on the old to-do list. I just glanced over at my OBS recording and saw this hole and like thought to avoid it, and then I started playing the game through the secondary window that OBS is recording in. That's not safe. Let's not do that. That's like a little bit of a handicap I'm giving myself. So yeah, thanks True Pain Games. Whoops. Oh, who asked this? I accidentally deleted the question. I think it was Lilac Jedi Bride asked, do you have any weird hidden talents? Juggling? Celebrity impressions? A perfect sense of smell, etc.? A perfect sense of smell? Does somebody have that as a talent? How do you prove such a thing? I can wiggle my ears. I think I've mentioned that before. Not dramatically, but they can wiggle, and due to their impressive size, the wiggling is a bit what's the word I'm looking for? Prominent. It's easy to be seen. Any other talents? Whoops. Placing a workbench on the bottom of the ocean is a talent of mine. Whoops. Bloink. Yeah, no, I can't juggle. I'm okay with the yo-yo. Like I used to mess around with yo-yos a lot as a kid, but not anything like I'm going up on stage and doing tricks. Woo! Surfing USA. I can surf. Yeah, I don't know. Probably the ear wiggle thing. If you're asking for weird talents, that'll definitely go up on the weird talent thing. So thank you very much for that. I know a guy who can put dental floss in his nose and bring it out through his mouth. Ice Allen says in chat. I think everybody technically could do that. It's whether or not you want to do that and or can stand doing that. Just like everybody, if you make them laugh while drinking milk, milk will come out of your nose. So yeah, that's just a biological fact. It's whether or not you want to do that and or can survive the gag reflex to do that. All right, we're getting into gross territory with those type of talents. Audi Craze asked, what got you into space and enjoying astronomy? And what got you into enjoying racing? Space. The final frontier. No, space. That's a tough one. I started to get into it as a kid. And I asked my parents for a telescope, and we ended up getting a department store telescope from one of those mall stores. Nature's Wonders, one of those wonders. Who wonders? You know, it was what I've now learned is one of those typical department store telescopes where the eyepieces are not the right size. and hard to aim. You know, 500 times magnification, 1,000 times magnification, you know, these sort of things that you'll never be able to use. Not my parents' fault or anything like that. I appreciate that, but from that, I was only ever able to, like, look at the moon, and I never found the planets and stuff. So that kind of died out pretty quick, but it wasn't until I think I graduated college. Well, no, every now and then, like, I remember watching the Pathfinder landing on Mars. Actually, you know what? That might have been it. That might have been the thing that gave the initial astronomy. I mean, I was always into space shuttles, too, kind of. Either way, the Pathfinder landing on Mars, I remember watching distinctly on, like, television. It wasn't the internet and NASA TV online that you got your rocket launch and planetary landing news from. It was network news. Yeah, it was after that, after college even, when I couldn't find a job and was pretty bored, I ended up finding out that, oh, like they were building the space station and you could, it got to the point where, oh, it's bright enough to see at night. So I started looking up, like, all the times it would be over, and I tried to, like, see it, and finally I saw it, and I'm like, oh, that's amazing, and then I started noticing all these other satellites I could see, and, you know, spent rocket bodies and things, noticing them at night, and then from that I started to look at the rest of the night sky, and got into space and stuff, and joined the astronomy club, and they helped me pick out my first telescope, and went out to dark sites and things like that, and then went and saw the Venus transit. You know, it all snowballed from there, which was fairly recent in my life. That was after college and everything. I was, what, 25 or something like that? 24, 25. And then when I started doing this was kind of the peak as well. I was still on the astronomy club in 2011, and that was the transit of Venus was when I was doing this. Where's my bed? There it is. Speaking of which, look at those satellites. No, there's no satellites here. But let's go to sleep and continue answering this question in the morning. And satellitesness. So yeah, you can see the International Space Station. Usually just after sunset, well, like 1 or 2 hours after sunset, or just before sunrise. And what was really cool then was when the space shuttle, after a space shuttle launched to go to the space station, is you can see it chasing. You can see it chasing the space station. And then when it departed, you could see the 2 separate dots, if you were lucky enough to have a flyover at that time. And you could similarly do the same thing with SpaceX, just launched the Dragon capsule, but it's just so much smaller. It's not as easy of a light to see in the sky. But anyway, where was I going with this? heavensabove.com is the website I use to see. I actually accidentally saw, that's always fun. I was out getting the mail last week, and it was one of these random clear nights in Seattle. And happened to look up and saw, I'm like, is that an airplane? No, that's not an airplane. It ain't blinking. That's the space station. Neat. Got him. Didn't even need that fancy pants website flyover prediction tracker. Just look up and see it. So yeah. And of course, this year, it's still this year, right? The eclipse was amazing, and I need to see more of them. I need it. Bring them to me. So yeah, I'm still into that. It's kind of a bummer I don't belong to an astronomy club anymore. I had that big telescope. I ended up donating to my old astronomy club in Illinois, because I moved across the country, and I probably could have brought it with, and it would have arrived unscathed, but I was a little bit afraid of that, not doing such a thing. I have a smaller telescope, a refractor. What is it? It's an 80 millimeter refractor. But I just haven't had much reason to bust it out recently. Antarctica 2019. Let's go. Bow, 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 bow. So yeah, I think that's what's got me into space. Yeah, it is one of those bummers that like, oh man, if I had like stuck with it at an earlier age, maybe that's what I would have gone into school for. And I still would have been in school trying to get a PhD right now, right? Am I right? It would have been great. But yeah, I eventually came full circle and in my mid to late 20s got back into astronomy and stuff. What got me into race cars? I don't know, my dad was always into cars. Like, brought me to not car clubs, car shows and things like that. I don't know, I'm not that as into car racing as maybe you think I am. I'm into car racing video games. My interest in car racing came mostly from video games. Your Gran Turismos and Bill Elliott's NASCAR Racing 1995 or whatever it was on the original NES. Yeah, that's really where my interest in driving and racing comes from, is honestly video games. I think Cone is in a similar boat, because I think he said his interest started, like growing up in the South, he was surrounded by NASCAR and stuff, but his interest in road racing and that sort of thing came from playing Gran Turismo on the PlayStation. But, yeah. Thank you very much for that question, Audi Craze. Similarly, Rat the Unloved and Kaduyu asked if I got a chance to see the recent Geminid meteor shower, which should have been a good one because it was past the full moon, so the moon was rising later. I did not. I went out to see if it was one of these rare, clear Seattle nights, and it wasn't. It wasn't even like super cloudy. It was just a high haze. A high haze in Washington. Why would that be? But yeah, I could like see the brightest stars, but it was way too fuzzy to have been able to see any meteors or anything like that. But I certainly hope some of you got a chance to. Those are always neat. Kind of one of those few. I was about to say careful, Wolfie, but then I took damage. Who am I to suck? Whoa, that was a lot of damage you took there, my friend. Good thing I have a lot of Wolfie treats. Hey, you with the face. Yeah, you. There we go. Boink. Boink. So yeah, one of those rare times when things in the sky move. The Northern Lights are still something I want to see. There was an event a few months ago that, like, solar flare or something happened, and there was supposedly visible from Seattle, since we're up further north here. But you gotta really be in a super dark place away from the city. And even then, this far south, anything that you do see would just be interpreted as kind of a faint color on the horizon. You really got to be up north to get the actual full experience, I think, anyway. I mean, there's a random, extreme storm event that could bring them down further, but that's still on the list. Did the eclipse, Venus transit, done all sorts of meteors and things like that. Transits and conjunctions and whatever, but the Northern Lights, that's the last one to do. Yeah. There's that. You know what, this is like, well, I could go around there. Yeah, let's do that. I was about to just wrap around and walk it, but who wants to walk when you can boat? Also, along the same lines of that previous question about racing, Liger Zero Schneider asked, since you like playing Forza, I like playing Forza, since when? And Formula One, have you ever been to a race car race in person? Oh, I thought this question was, have you ever raced a car in real life? But no, have you ever been to a race car race in person? I have been to quite a few. When I was very young, very, very young, a wee Kurt J. Mac. I don't know, I had to have been like 10 or something like that. My uncle used to race dirt track racing, and he took me to a dirt track race. I was so young, I don't remember too much about it, but it was those, what the heck are those? The things with the big wings on their hoods that drive sideways. I keep wanting to say funny car, but that's wrong. Those are the drag racers. Midgets? Is that what they're called? That's not politically correct. But, yeah, those little tiny cars. I saw that, and the main thing I remember is tasting dirt, because it gets in your teeth. Sprints, that's what they're called. Yeah, sprint car racing. That was like my first actual car race, I think. And then when they built the Chicagoland Speedway, I went to, I don't know, 6 or 7 in a row, just because my dad's work got tickets for a bunch of the employees. So I went to the NASCAR races there. I even went to a few of the IndyCar races there as well. Careful of it! And then more recently in Phoenix, I went to the Red Bull Racing Rallycross, which was a different experience entirely. That was Red Bull. Whoa, Red Bull, music during the race. Stop with that. This is not a video game. I don't want music during the race. That was interesting and different. I'll say that much. And then, of course, I did end up going to, where did I go? Laguna Seca? Yeah. Just on the off weekend, I happened to be there, and they happened to have some local club racing, so it wasn't like a specific race, but I walked the track, and there were, different, multi-class car races with, a whole bunch of E30s and then a whole bunch of Miatas, stuff racing each other and stuff, spec car racing, and then there was, like, in between, just, like, track day racing, people in their Ferraris and old Corvettes and things driving around. So yeah, I certainly have. But I've not myself raced as a driver, if that was also part of your question. I believe they want people who have actual talent to do such things. There you go, Wolfie. Have a seat right there. We'll make the end of the episode hidey hole. What is this, a normal length 3-day episode? Kind of a series are you running here? With any sort of expected duration. Right, this thing is gonna break soon, right? There it goes. I love that your tool breaks and then you just accidentally start punching the material with your fists. That always happens, right? You're like, pencil breaks and suddenly you try to write with, like, your fingernails. That's just hard, plain science right there. But yeah, thank you everybody for watching, and thank you everybody in the chat and in my Discord for providing the questions. Still have some leftovers here, so worry not if your question was not brought up. And I do appreciate all the continued support through the Patreon madness. Ooh, I need planks. Oh, don't forget to remind me next time. Through the Patreon madness and all the other stuff. A lot of support I'm seeing in many forms. Regardless of it being monetary, like I said, look at how symmetrical this is. Let's destroy that symmetry. I hate it! Regardless of its actual, like, subscriptions on Twitch or Patreonage or whatever. If there and watching and thumbs upping or commenting or even just lurking in the background. I'm an admitted long-time lurker of other people's Twitch channels, so welcome to the club, and your presence is much appreciated. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. My name is Kurt. I will see you next time.